Welcome to the Successful Encore Career Podcast, brought to you by Nationwide Insurance, Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging, and Innosource. This episode is being recorded at the Veterans Job and Resource Fair, hosted by Congressman Steve Sivers at Rev 1 Ventures in Columbus. I'm Brett Johnson, longtime volunteer with Employment for Seniors, and with me, as usual, is Carol Ventresca.
Hey, Brett, how are you today?
Doing great.
This is wonderful. This is a great program that Congressman Stivers and his staff have put together for local veterans of any age. They asked Employment for Seniors to be part of it, and of course, we just popped right in here with our podcast equipment. So hello to everyone who's listening to us today. And what we're going to try to do today is to have an overview of the services that are available for veterans, again, of any age. There are so many different resources available, but I think that it's really difficult for many people to sort of get through the process. And the assumption is that an older veteran is only interested in healthcare issues, which of course are incredibly important, but there are other kinds of resources that are available. So we are asking several of the agencies to come and talk to us today. Our first guest is Ryan Blackburn, who is the Workforce Manager for the Ohio Department of Veterans Services. Ryan, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
This is great, and we are very excited. We want to hear a lot more about what's going on with the state of Ohio's Veterans Services, but why don't you give us a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. I'm an Air Force veteran. I joined the Air Force out of Central Ohio back in 2004. I served as an intelligence analyst for 6 years. Came back to Central Ohio, where I called home. Ended up pursuing a bachelor's degree at Ohio State University, and I've now been with the State Department of Veterans Services for about 2 years now.
Wonderful. That's great. And again, our thanks to you for joining us today.
Sure.
So let's get right into what the agency does and the kinds of services that they provide for veterans.
Sure. Well, the Department of Veterans Services as a whole is the state agency for veterans here in Ohio. We do a lot of records management, things like that. The state approving agency goes out and approves GI Bill funding at schools and universities. But then some of the other things we do is we print the resource guide. So if you've ever seen the pamphlet of just kind of the one-stop shop for veteran benefits and resources, that's the office that prints those out as well. So we have quite a big role. We also have oversight of the 88 county veteran service offices. I think that's important for veterans in Ohio to be aware that all 88 counties, every single one has a county veteran service office in it, which is a great kind of one-stop shop at the county level for financial support, filing VA claims, getting employment assistance. They're there to just be kind of that one-stop shop at the county level for the veterans. So we help all 88 counties out as well with that. And then there's my section, the workforce section. I manage a team that travels around the state, and we help employers understand veterans, translate skills, kind of any question they might have in regards to hiring veterans. We have a team that goes out and kind of works on the employer side with helping out the employers with the hiring.
Okay, so let me ask a couple of questions. You mentioned that there is a resource pamphlet or booklet.
Yes.
So does that include local, county, state, federal programs?
It does. It's just kind of a one-stop shop for all those different
Everything.
Resources. We come to events like this and we'll pass them out, but you can also get it digitally. If you go to ohiovet.gov and just click benefits at the top, there's a link to the benefit resource guide right there, and it's kind of the PDF version of the 30 or 40 page pamphlet, everything
Wonderful.
from legal and education, employment, just all kinds of stuff. And that's, from the local level to the federal level.
Okay, so that's wonderful to know that it's on electronically because, believe it or not, our seniors, quote unquote, are on the internet and
Sure.
They are looking for information all the time. So that'll be good information, and we can include that in our podcast notes so that anyone who's listening then can go directly to that resource.
Perfect.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, the employment issues, particularly for older veterans, if you could.
Sure. They encounter some of the same issues as younger veterans encounter. When we look at the unemployment rate for age structure among veterans, it's pretty common, whether you're young or old, to have that unemployment. So what my team does is we go out there and we try to, demystify any stigmas that might be associated with veterans, and that includes older veterans, whether it's the PTSD or the TBI or, the skills don't translate well. So that's what my team goes out and we work with the HR professionals, the hiring managers, and we want to kind of be on that side of the house of working with the employers who may just not understand veterans, especially older veterans, what kind of experiences they had, what kind of leadership skills, the soft skills, the attention to detail, the hardworking, all the kind of soft skills that come with being a veteran. And that's what we want to educate these companies on. For just maybe lack of education. They just don't know. Sometimes it's hard to look at a veteran's resume and translate skills to see, what worked in the military. It actually does work on the civilian side. It's just hard to get from point A to point B sometimes.
Right.
When looking at the
It's all the
resume.
language.
It is. The military is a whole different language. And if you've been in, especially older veterans that may have, even retired and done 20 years, 25 years, it just becomes a lifestyle, and you learn this new language to talk about, and then you transition to the civilian side, and it can be hard to kind of decipher what you did in the military to get into the eyes and ears of the civilian
Right.
HR world. So.
You had mentioned the notion of transferable skills. So not only identifying those skills, but also translating them into the civilian workforce issues, the requirements. And a lot of that is jargon and language issues. But one of the things that I have dealt with veterans, you would have thought that I was telling them to, betray our country because I said a resume talks about you, not your unit.
Sure.
And that is difficult for our veterans to understand, that an employer needs to know what they can do by themselves without that unit notion.
Absolutely. One of the presentations that's probably most popular with my team is called Interviewing Veterans, because we got a lot of feedback from employers that when they were sitting in an interview and interviewing a veteran, they would tell us that exact thing. They would talk about the team, and it's, we want to learn about what you did. And when you're taught for 6, 10, 20 years that, it's a team mission, it's team goals, it's, you win unit awards. But on, coming back to the civilian side, it's hard to, start talking about the team again, or talking about yourself, I'm sorry, and translating that back. We also get a lot of feedback that veterans tend to be very rigid during interviews, and a lot of yes sir, yes ma'am, short answers, sit up 90 degrees and don't blink for half an hour. Just because, again, you've been in the military for so long, there's not really interviews.
Right.
The first couple promotions are time and grade based. After that, you take a test or sit in front of a board. That's the closest thing you have to a job interview. So, again, my team's on the other side of the coin, working with the employers to help them understand, help unlock veterans, help ask the right questions so they can learn about the skills that they actually did.
And that sitting up straight and yes ma'am, no ma'am is not necessarily really negative, and it's probably something the employer is interested in, just not during the interview because they can't get a feel for that person.
Exactly. It can almost be intimidating
True.
For the employer on that side. So that's just one of the many presentations we go out and deliver to the employer side, just to kind of, again, help them understand veterans more on that side of the coin, where if you walk through the room here today at Congressman Stiver's event, you can see all these resources that are available for veterans. So we knew the people were out there helping the veterans, so we wanted to kind of fill the niche of, okay, let's help the employers, because I think word got out, a few years ago that, hiring veterans is good, and a lot of companies want to do it. But what we started hearing was just from companies saying, we want to hire veterans, we just don't know how to, or we don't know where to find them, we don't know how to understand them. So that's where we created this role from a couple years ago.
So if an employer is listening to this podcast, do they get in touch with you for information on how they can be better interviewers and hiring employers for veterans?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. All our contact information, again, ohiovet.gov, ohiovets.gov, they all take you to the same place. You can click on the jobs tab and find the Veterans Workforce Team. So there's 3 of me across the state. We also have an office in Dayton and one in Akron. So we kind of cover the whole state that way. So no matter where you are in the state of Ohio, we're here to help. Big, small, public, private. If you just, have trouble finding veterans, it's just kind of another piece of that workforce puzzle with unemployment rates low. So we're here to help, and that's how you can contact us. All our information is there. And yeah, so you should be able to find
Wonderful.
Emails and phone numbers and all that good stuff.
Do you have a great success story that you can tell us about?
We kind of label our success stories of just working with the employers and getting feedback from them. So we have, again, it's kind of unique on our side because we don't work with the veterans too much. We want to be kind of in the background working with the employers and, hopefully just educating them enough to where, year after year they might be hiring more veterans. But we've talked to employers before that we know we're doing a good job when they have us back every, couple months to do the training again to a different segment, or the hiring managers or the senior leadership. So, nothing really specific, but that's when we know we're doing the right thing, and then maybe seeing the numbers in a couple years where, this employer we worked with only hired 10 veterans one year, and they hired 30 the next year. So we can definitely see the numbers go up at some of the places that we go out and visit.
Wonderful.
So that's kind of how we label the success.
Yeah, I was going to say, just recently I saw an insert in our AAP bill, and it was spotlighting one of the employees, the line workers,
Sure.
and he had a dog with him, an emotional dog.
Really?
And it was describing what that dog does for him all day long, and he senses when he's anxious, nervous, and does his job in helping him come down. But he was a veteran. And I thought that for AEP, no discouragement against AEP, but for a large company like that to put an insert and spotlight hiring veterans and allowing that to occur. And it was a heads up to customers too that, hey, he may be out, but with his dog.
Oh, right.
So don't be alarmed.
Sure.
It's part of it. For his support. I thought that was a great spotlight, a success story in the making right there, that they're giving heads up, but as well as, hey, we're hiring veterans and we're helping them do a great job.
Yeah, and I think because, like I said, word got out that veterans are a good hire. They come with all the soft skills. So you see a lot more companies like that providing those types of accommodations just to kind of get veterans in the door and employed. So I encourage any of the veterans that might be listening to this to, ask during an interview, what kind of special veterans things do they do? There's a company here in Columbus that, if the member deploys, if they're still in the National Guard or Reserve and they deploy, they offer a home warranty to the spouse that's, going to be back here for the next 6 or 12 months. So if something goes wrong at the house, they don't have to worry about it. And we get all types of stories like this. And again, I think it's because veterans are becoming more of a commodity in the hiring world because unemployment rates are low. And a lot more companies want to hire veterans. So they're finding ways to accommodate more and more every day.
Wonderful. Great. So why don't you give us the contact information again?
Sure.
And we will make sure that it's in the podcast notes so that if either an employer is looking for assistance on helping, getting help to hire veterans, or if a veteran is looking for information, they know where to go.
Sure. The website's ohiovet.gov. Again, they can access the whole state of Department of Veteran Services services through that website. My contact information is ryan.blackburn at dvs.ohio.gov. And my work number is 614-296-5892.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ryan. It was nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both.
Circle270Media.com.